Good evening, I'm Saraya Mia and you're watching AWANI Tonight. Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin has been charged with abuse of power and money laundering in connection with the awarding of government contracts during the COVID-19 pandemic. The former Prime Minister pleaded not guilty to the 6 charges at the Kuala Lumpur Sessions Court this morning. For the first 4 counts, Muhyiddin was charged for using his position to obtain 232.5 million ringgit in bribes between March 1, 2020 and August 20, 2021. The money was allegedly deposited into Bersatu's bank accounts from 3 companies and an individual. For the remaining 2 charges, Muhyiddin was charged for receiving 195 million ringgit of funds from unlawful activities. The Perikatan Nasional chairman was released on bail of 2 million ringgit with 2 sureties by the Sessions Court. He was also ordered to surrender his passport pending disposal of his case. The judge has set May 26 for case mention. He is expected to face another court charge in Shah Alam next Monday. Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin has reiterated his innocence, claiming the charges against him were selective persecution and were a political ploy to destroy him, his family, and his party. The Bago MP said he did not have any powers to approve the Jana Wibawa projects under his administration, and that all were approved by the Finance Ministry using the legal rules and means of acquisition.
Saya tidak didakwa di atas kesalahan menerima rasuah bagi diri saya. Ini kerana setelah siasatan dibuat, didapati tidak ada 1 sen pun wang rakyat masuk ke poket saya sendiri sepanjang saya menjadi Perdana Menteri. Ini tentunya berbeza sekali dengan fitnah yang dilemparkan ke atas saya. Kononnya saya menyelewengkan 600 bilion wang pakej rangsangan ekonomi semasa pandemik COVID-19.
Muhyiddin added that he would leave it to Bersatu's Supreme Council to decide if he should remain the party's president. In other news, Siti Wangsa MP Datuk Sri Johari Abdul Ghani has been appointed by Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim to chair a task force aimed at resolving matters linked to the 1MDB scandal. Anwar said he agreed with Johari's criticism of the previous government's settlement with Goldman Sachs.
In July 2020, Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin's administration called for Goldman Sachs to pay $2.5 billion while guaranteeing the return of $1.4 billion of 1MDB seized assets in exchange for Malaysia dropping charges against the bank. Last month, Johari called for Putrajaya to launch a probe against those involved in the settlement with Goldman Sachs, saying Malaysia had been shortchanged. The former second finance minister said the bank acted as financial advisor and lead manager for 3 bonds issued by 1MDB worth $6.5 billion, earning over $600 million in the process. Johari added that the criminal conviction of 2 former Goldman Sachs employees pointed conclusively to the questionable nature of the 1MDB settlement.
A U.S. judge sentenced former head of Goldman Sachs Malaysia, Roger Ng, to 10 years in prison. This after he was convicted of helping loot billions of dollars from the country's 1MDB sovereign wealth fund. Last April, a federal court in Brooklyn found Ng guilty for helping his former boss Tim Leissner embezzle money from the fund, launder the proceeds, and bribe government officials to win business. The charges stem from some $6.5 billion in bonds that Goldman helped raise for 1MDB. U.S. prosecutors said $4.5 billion of that sum was embezzled by officials, bankers, and their associates. Ng had denied the charges and plans to appeal the sentence, according to his lawyer. But prosecutors sought 15 years in prison for Ng, saying he played a key role in the corruption scheme. Electoral watchdog Bersih has called on the government to enact a Fixed-Term Parliament Act to deter the sudden premature dissolution of Parliament. The group releases its observation report on the recent 15th general election today, highlighting offences and recommendations to further improve the electoral system.
The act is said would allow for the government to set an upcoming election date earlier and for the Election Commission (EC) to make better preparations. The report also listed a total of 347 election offences committed by various parties during GE15, 173 of which were committed on polling day itself. They ranged from misuse of government resources, bribery and vote buying, excessive election spending and intimidation. According to the report, these offences were usually ignored, indicating loopholes in the current Election Offences Act. The EC is urged to be given more bite by allowing it to issue compounds or fines for the offences. The report also suggests for the formation of Permanent Parliamentary Standing Committee on Election Matters, which will allow Parliament oversight of the EC. With the committee, the EC can be held accountable to matters such as releasing all election reports that are important archives for research purposes.
We'll be right back after the break. Stay with us.
Cuaca panas menyebabkan kelemomor minyak dan kegatalan? Tewaskan kelemomor dengan Clear Ice Cool Menthol. Teknologi 3 kali ganda membersih kulit kepala secara mendalam. 3 kali lebih bersih. Tiada kelemomor, tiada minyak, tiada kegatalan. Clear terbukti menewaskan kelemomor. Serlakan keceriaan dengan Gardenia Quick Bites.
Kita orang High Council kami. Dan aku Kapla High Council.
Menangi peluang bertemu para pelakon High Council. Pelanggan Astro. Sertai peraduan melalui aplikasi My Astro.
Jumpa kami di sana.
Welcome back. Facing the impacts of climate change is inevitable as Malaysia braves through the floods and extreme weather unlike before. While there has been repeated calls for more environment and climate action, has the government in its first 100 days done enough? We speak to youth climate advocate Muhyiddin Sababati.
Among the most notable measures taken in this first 100-day period was definitely the decision to merge the natural resources, environment and climate change ministries, which would obviously help in terms of managing environmental issues better, and helps especially that all three areas are interrelated, and it's extremely crucial that efforts are put together across these fields for more effective, inclusive and comprehensive solutions. Another noteworthy measure is that our Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has reiterated the importance of regional and global connectivity, which we can clearly see by the diplomatic relationships we have at the international level. Now, why I say this is important is because there is a dire need for collective action in working together to exchange and enhance current level of ties in relation to environmental and climate issues at the global space. Finally, I think the recently announced budget has seen a marked increase in allocating funds towards sustainable development and environment, where we could see that this government has also taken major steps in the area of clean energy, biodiversity protection and supporting environmental friendly projects, including to encourage green and low carbon practices among small and medium enterprises and businesses. From the recent budget announcement where we could see 6.53 billion ringgit, and that's an increase of 8.4% from last year, has been allocated for the NRECC ministry.
Muhyiddin also emphasized the importance of youth as contributors to climate action, especially since they are one of the most impacted by the climate crisis.
As a young climate advocate myself, I think the focus should be placed on engaging youths in climate change movement. Now, I believe that our youth are an extremely essential voice and a powerful force in the global movement, and it's rising across the world. And it's essential that their perspectives are incorporated into the government's plans and strategies and decisions. And there should also be an increase. There should also be an increased support for community-driven initiatives, particularly those implemented by youths and young people, as a mean for creating a more resilient society, a more resilience to the impacts of climate change. Because, like we always say, youths are not just the victims of the climate impacts, but also valuable contributors to climate action, because they are the most impacted by it, though they contribute the least, right? So this can be achieved, I believe, through the establishment of partnerships between various stakeholders, such as private sectors, civil societies, and academia.
On the foreign front, China's Xi Jinping has been handed an unprecedented third term as president, capping a rise that has seen him become China's most powerful leader in generations. Xi was reappointed as president for another 5 years by China's rubber stamp parliament in a ceremonial vote. Nearly 3,000 members of China's parliament voted unanimously for Xi to be president in an election where there was no other candidate. The appointment comes after Xi was handed another 5 years as head of the Chinese Communist Party and the military, the two more significant leadership positions in Chinese politics, in October. Confirmation of his third term as president had been widely expected after a change to the constitution in 2018 that scrapped term limits. The naming of a new premier and various ministers in the coming days is considered more important. Zhao Liqi was elected as the new parliament chair and Han Zheng the new vice president. Both were from Xi's previous team of party leaders at the Politburo Standing Committee. Meanwhile, 8 people were killed and several injured in a shooting at a Jehovah's Witness church in the North German city of Hamburg. Police confirmed this, but are still searching for a motive of the attack. They said the gunman acted alone and was among the dead. Authorities said they were alerted to the shooting about 9 p.m. Thursday and were on the scene quickly. As they arrived at the scene, they found several seriously wounded and some dead before hearing a gunshot upstairs and found a fatally wounded person suspected to be the attacker. German media reported the gunman to be a former member of the church community. The man was aged between 30 and 40 and was not known to authorities as an extremist, the report said. Police have yet to confirm this. Germany has been shaken by a number of fatal shootings the last few years, including 9 dead in 2020 and 2 deaths in 2019. Indonesia's Election Commission has launched an appeal against a controversial court ruling that ordered it to delay the 2024 presidential and general elections. The ruling has drawn backlash and criticism by civil groups and political leaders who deemed it as unconstitutional and politically motivated. The Election Commission, known as the KPU, had submitted its appeal, which will be heard and ruled on by the Jakarta High Court. On March 2nd, the Central Jakarta District Court ruled in favor of a lawsuit lodged by the Prima Party that alleged the KPU had stopped it from exercising its right to field candidates for the 2024 general election. The court then ordered the KPU to stop all ongoing election procedures and restart the process, pushing the polls back to 2025 at the earliest. The ruling has renewed concerns about efforts to keep President Joko Widodo in office beyond 2024, as his term should end next year after 2 5-year terms. But the president had said his administration will support KPU's appeal. Indonesia is set to vote for a new president and members of the legislative bodies on February 14th next year. That ends the show for the week. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
Isu kesesakan bagi urusan pasport di Jabatan Immigration.